All right, yeah. Thanks to everyone for joining another episode of Multi-Chain Sessions. For this episode, we have someone quite special and quite a good team. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about this project. So we have with us today Dam Finance and Harrison, more specifically, the founder of Dam Finance. So yeah, thanks for being here, Harrison.
Thanks for having me, Francisco.
No worries, no worries. It's a pleasure. Um, So yeah, we can probably just kick things off with the basics, right? If you could maybe introduce yourself and give an intro of what Dam Finance is, I think that would be helpful to give more context to listeners.
Sure. So my name is Harrison Comfort. I'm one of the co-founders for DAM Finance, and I'm the product lead. And DAM is a lending protocol for creating purchasing power from cross-chain token portfolios. So on DAM, borrowers are able to deposit baskets of tokens in a single transaction to mint D Prime, which is DAM's Moonbeam-based stablecoin. And the spirit of this innovation is to provide borrowers or crypto users more flexibility in creating their own purchasing power or being their own bank. Of course, when things are getting volatile, more flexibility in terms of vault maintenance and maintaining a healthy vault, but also working to accommodate a broader range of blockchain secured assets as collateral.
Got it, got it. And could you maybe give a background on yourself? Like, were you working in Web3 before Dam, or what kind of led you to this project?
Sure. So uh, I was working in the enterprise blockchain space at a firm called R3. So our founding team, three of us, we had met at R3, and Noah was at Fidelity. And just the reality was that innovation in the public realm was happening far faster. So kind of left that full time in order to start focusing more so on public blockchains. And I came across the Dotsama ecosystem early on, and I think what was really exciting about it was, some of the native substrate tooling allowed more opportunity for governance and sort of more rights to the actual parachains with regards to issuing tokens. So that was something that was, or issuing different types of assets. So that was something that was immediately attractive because those were the kinds of things that some of the enterprises that we had been working with at R3, some of the banks were definitely interested in. Um, and as you can imagine, making a living predominantly on yield farming and airdrops, that can be a little hard to explain to landlords and banks who don't exactly give mortgages based on how your DeFi yield farming is going. Um, and I became a dad 10 months ago, and our family wanted to find a more permanent place for us. So in order to lock that place in, we borrowed against some of our ETH and Bitcoin to do so. But the reality is that if we were able to borrow against all of our assets, many of them that were on Dotsama, we would have been closer towards our dream of getting our dream home, so to speak. So with that, really DAM was founded based on this idea of just embracing the reality that people in the space have a diverse set of tokens secured by different blockchains. Um, and also, it can be a pretty terrible user experience managing a bunch of these single asset vaults. If one asset's volatile, you're not being given essentially the benefit from the perspective of the protocol for the overall amount of assets or collateral that's been deposited. And our team, which comes from the enterprise software world, we've all built and sold software to regulated financial institutions. We really just saw an opportunity to materially improve the user experience associated with this, and we're thrilled to have that opportunity and deploying on Moonbeam in connection with that.
All right, cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I mean, you kind of touched upon this topic a little bit regarding Substrate and Polkadot. How did you end up deciding to build on Moonbeam or Moon River specifically?
So we are extremely bullish on the Dotsama ecosystem because, I mean, when you look at a lot of the other L1s, like, let's be honest, if gas fees on Ethereum were cheap, like, would anyone really be using any of those other L1s? And our team's view is, the reality is probably not so much. But when you look at some of the tooling that's native to Substrate and the parachain architecture, you're seeing the rise of net new assets being issued on the blockchain. And given our team is familiar with the EVM, we viewed Moonbeam as the best way to access those assets, especially since the Moonbeam parachain has been doing a ton of work, has really been ahead of the curve in terms of some of these XCM integrations. And ultimately, given our focus is cross-chain in terms of enabling borrowers to unlock liquidity for assets that are secured on other L1s so they can increase their purchasing power in Dotsama, we really see Moonbeam's vision as really just aligned with ours in terms of being able to unlock on-chain liquidity. And also just the community has been great. And when you look at some of the values that it has in terms of really being customer centric and building really quality, secure software on time, those were definitely values that our team aspires to have.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Obviously, I agree with you, and we do agree with this thesis that I mean, there's so many L1s right now that are trying to differentiate themselves by being, cheaper, faster. I just think it's an uphill battle to try to get a competitive advantage with those concepts, right? That's why we're leaning so much into this notion of interoperability and being able to communicate with other blockchains. So yeah, I mean, we're obviously aligned in that regard. And I mean, you've already kind of spoken about what some of the approaches that you're taking, right, with being able to provide support for different types of assets. Would you say that that's kind of what makes them unique, or how would you kind of describe your differentiator from other lending and borrowing protocols?
So our goal is to make the user experience 10 times better than it is today in terms of creating your own purchasing power, versus something like Maker DAO, which we know clearly we've drawn quite a bit of inspiration. And first and foremost, there's the capital efficiency of being able to mutualize the value of the total assets that you've deposited into the protocol for purposes of not only borrowing and minting D prime, but also maintaining a healthy vault, right? Because on a platform like MakerDAO, if you have two vaults and one of them is super over collateralized and the other one's being volatile, like MakerDAO does not care about the overall assets that you've put into the platform, so you can get liquidated. And to us, we just view that as resulting in unnecessary headaches, unnecessary blockchain transactions. And I'll be honest, I had like my Christmas dinner ruined because of this. So I can only imagine what other people that have been, interacting with these primitives have experienced. And as you mentioned, in connection with this linked multi-collateral vault, we call it, we view it as a means to accommodate a wider range of collateral, starting with parachain assets. And then in the future, it's really around enabling users to lock up collateral secured by other chains to mint D prime on Moonbeam. So overall, I think the key thing that we're driving at is trying to improve the user experience associated with creating your own purchasing power and just embracing the reality that people in this space are holding assets secured by different blockchains. And, there's certainly a hesitance and reticence around using bridges. So enabling folks to be able to unlock liquidity in a way that is secure.
Got it, got it. And to be honest, my next question was kind of related to what you just described. It's about how do users benefit from DEM finance versus other lending protocols, which you kind of alluded to right now, and maybe if you could describe like some of the use cases that might be impactful moving forward. I mean, you described that you kind of I mean you're going to be like a hub for Dotsama assets, right? And for holders of different parachain assets to come to DAM Finance and to be able to take out loans with those assets. Do you think those are going to be like the use cases that you focus on moving forward as well?
Yes, and to be clear, we view ourselves as like very complementary to a lot of the projects that are currently on Moonbeam. Projects like Moonwell and Stella Swap, as well as some of the emerging projects that are similarly kind of coming live in the next weeks and months. So in terms of use cases, yeah, absolutely, it's around unlocking liquidity for their Dotsama assets without having to sell them and incur capital gains. But in connection with that, we are really focused on creating as much utility for D prime as possible. So, with our stablecoin D Prime, there will be an opportunity to engage in income opportunities on the platform. So, we want to incentivize long-term holding of D Prime. So, if you stake D Prime on the platform, you will be able to share in protocol revenues, as well as some of the rewards from the liquidity incentives from the dam from for actually the dam token as well. But also, we're just trying to create as much liquidity as possible for D Prime versus some of the other assets that are native to Moonbeam as well. So, in addition to just the overall user experience enhancements from unlocking liquidity from these different parachain assets without having to sell them. We want to be creating as much utility for D Prime as possible. And as I alluded to, I see a ton of opportunity to work with some of the existing projects and the emerging projects in the Moonbeam ecosystem.
All right, cool. Yeah, no, I think I'm super excited for Dam Finance. I think you guys are doing great work. I mean, taking things a little bit broader. I mean, I think one of the things that's most surprised me of this industry is how fast it moves, right, compared to other spaces. I mean, what do you think like of the state of DeFi today? Are there certain things that get you excited or concerned? I know there's been a lot going on in the last months, so I'd be curious to get your take on kind of the broader DeFi space.
The way that we view it is that we're standing on the shoulders of giants in terms of some of the innovation that's taken place, right? I mean, we've drawn a ton of inspiration from some of the existing, DeFi protocols, and without them, without that foundation, we wouldn't be able to be making the innovations that we are today. So, what we're most excited about is, there's tens of millions of people around the world that hold crypto assets, but if you really peel back the onion, not that many actually use DeFi. There's like probably around 300,000 people in the world that actually use DeFi. So we just see so much white space, or rather market opportunity within the existing Web3 investors who are holding assets uh, on one chain, on multiple chains, to really help them unlock liquidity in a way that our team has certainly benefited from. Just given the traditional finance world does not accommodate does not accommodate for yield farming and airdrops in the way that folks are able to realize economic opportunities in Web3.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, I guess are you trying to mold your project to be aligned with that vision, right? Of like trying to onboard new users, making it easier for them, improving the user experience. Um, is there anything in particular that concerns you of DeFi? I guess I mean, in the end, these opinions or these visions that you have of the industry are somewhat shaping DAM as well, right?
Yeah, I think this isn't necessarily unique to, well, for us, we definitely want to engage net new DeFi users 100%. And that's for the existing Web3 investors and participants. But also, I mean, our team comes from an enterprise software background where we worked with banks. So there's actually a number of banks that we're speaking to real time. I covered the Middle East and Africa at my former employer R3. So like there's a number of banks that we're talking to that are super interested in bringing real world assets on chain. So it's sort of a two-prong approach in terms of engaging the existing users and thinking about future users, so to speak. But I would say the biggest problem with DeFi is it's a broader crypto problem. Is I just think the marketing of the space is not very good, because it kills me that you read the headlines on Decrypt or CoinDesk, and it's these like insane price predictions, or it's highlighting the fact that there was a vulnerability on a protocol versus, hey, there's all sorts of people in this world that are able to unlock economic opportunities that they are not in the real world. Like, I'll take myself. Like, I couldn't find a landlord to basically give me a lease. I couldn't find a bank who would give me a loan, but through DeFi, I was able to, figure out a more permanent situation for my family from a living perspective. And I just feel like those types of narratives are not ones that are being socialized in the way that people view crypto.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree, to be honest. And Yeah, I mean, shifting gears a little bit. I mean, I think in the last year or year and a half, we've seen kind of this rise of a multi-chain approach, right? Where you described it yourself. There's just been a bunch of like EVM compatible layer ones that have popped up that are getting traction, and we've seen teams trying to kind of get access to these new ecosystems, right? To expand their market, their set of users, their assets, and I think a consequence of this approach has been like a bunch of fragmentation in Web3, right? A fragmentation of assets through bridges, a fragmentation of users, so a fragment even of governance, right? How do you propagate like governance decisions throughout like different instances of your protocol and on different chains? So, I mean, at Moonbeam, we're really cognizant of these issues, and we want to try to solve them through the use of connected contracts, right? This idea that you can call smart contracts across different chains so you have kind of a more unified experience, and that you can aggregate things like liquidity and improve the user experience. I mean, I know that you guys are actively thinking about this as well. So as a cross-chain like DeFi protocol, how are you guys trying to leverage this connected contract approach on Moonbeam?
I mean, it's definitely something that we're focused on. I mean, in connection, I mean, the way that we view it is that Moonbeam is amazing at building infrastructure and helping abstract some of the low level, the low level primitives that are required for apps or dApps like us that need to exist. So, we are working closely, I suppose, with the Moonbeam team in terms of understanding how this is evolving, as well as looking at some of these other primitives that I know you guys are building on top of and collaborating with, people like XLR or projects like XLR rather. And for us, what we want to do is just allow, the Moonbeam or Dotsama participants who are holding assets in and on L1s like Near Protocol or Matic, if they want to essentially use those assets essentially as collateral such that they can increase their purchasing power on Moonbeam. That is the first sort of iteration of what we're looking to achieve in connection with DAM.
Got it. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And what are some of the trends that you're seeing out there? I mean, not necessarily, I mean, it could be DeFi or just Web3 in general. Are there any trends that you've kind of observed, or what would be some of the observations that you see moving forward for the industry as a whole or for DeFi?
I think what's really exciting to see is how many teams are building. I mean, clearly we're a bit more tunnel vision within the Dotsama ecosystem, but you know, feels like on a daily basis we're being introduced to net new teams, teams that are reaching out to work with us, and it's just really exciting to see how many other projects like ours are excited to be deploying in this ecosystem and introducing their own innovations, as well as these sort of net new types of assets that are coming within the Dotsama ecosystem. So I didn't mean for that to sound like a commercial, but it's just what gets us excited is seeing all these net new types of tokens that are coming up, that are representing different types of value, and all these builders that are so excited about the Dotsama ecosystem like us.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's been a lot of building happening right now despite market conditions, which is definitely exciting. Um, and yeah, maybe as a final question before we open it up to questions from the community. I mean, are there any what would you describe as the roadmap for DAM over the next 6 months to a year? Is there anything that you could share on what you're working on and or things that you're going to release in the near future?
Definitely. So the initial deployment of our of the DAM protocol on mainnet will be in Q4. We're trying to bring that as early in Q4 as possible. Call it, Halloween, but I don't want to commit to that just yet. But we're working towards bringing it up as early as possible in Q4. And then, shortly thereafter, some sort of token event for the DAM token, which will be our protocol's utility and governance token, and we'll be releasing more information around that. And then the general product roadmap is around just accommodating assets from different parachains, eventually those that are secured by other blockchains. And we like to have a little fun too. So we'll be releasing some more content that's inspired by the Gotham universe as well in the next months.
Yeah, I saw that you guys have a bunch of campaigns around the Joker, and I know we personally met in Paris, and you guys were super dedicated around these campaigns, which was cool to see. All right, cool. So yeah, I mean, those are pretty much all the questions I had. I think we still have time to. And thanks, by the way, Harrison, for all the insights. It's a pleasure to learn more about DAM and what you're building. Any last things that you want to say before we wrap it up? But yeah.
Just thanks for having us on. We're really excited to be in this ecosystem. If anybody listening is working on another project on the Dotsama space and they think that there's a potential partnership that you'd be interested in exploring, feel free to reach out. We're taking a very collaborative approach, and we want to be one of the many projects that are attracting TVL to Dotsama. So look forward to working with you guys.
All right, cool. Yeah, and thanks again for hopping on the show. And yeah, thanks to the community as well as always. And I think that pretty much wraps it up for this session. If you want to reach out to either me or Harrison, just do so via Telegram. I'm sure you can find their info. And yeah, thanks again for joining, everyone.
See you guys. Thank you.